All right, today we are digging deep, peeling back the layers of time to uncover a real-life monster. This isn't something from a movie. This is a creature of almost mythical proportions that once ruled a lost world, a giant brought back to life by science. I mean, think about it for a second. We usually imagine giant, world-circling serpents as pure fantasy, right? But what if I told you that 60 million years ago, a snake actually existed that was longer than a school bus and weighed more than a car? A true titan that slithered through a prehistoric jungle. Our story kicks off right here, in the massive open pit coal mine of Cerrejón, Colombia. Now, this place is more than just a source of fuel. It's a time capsule. The coal itself is literally the compressed remains of a sprawling, ancient rainforest. It gives paleontologists this incredible, unprecedented look into an ecosystem that thrived long after the dinosaurs were gone. And deep within these layers of time, scientists stumbled upon something that just shouldn't have been there. It was a single, baffling bone that didn't seem to belong to any known creature. This was the very first clue in a mystery that would end up taking decades to solve. For years, this fossil was a complete puzzle. When it was first dug up, some folks thought it was just a piece of a petrified tree branch. But then, as more similar fossils started turning up, theories started flying. Was it a vertebrae from some kind of giant crocodile, or maybe, part of a colossal turtle? The real answer was way more shocking. And this puzzle didn't just snap together overnight. Real scientific discovery is almost never a single eureka moment. The story really began way back in 1994, when a geologist named Henry Garcia found that first weird fossil. It took until 2007 for the specimens to even make their way to the Florida Museum of Natural History, where the real investigation could finally start. And even then, a key piece of the puzzle, the skull, was still buried for another 4 years. But that investigation in Florida, wow. It led to one of the most incredible revelations in the history of paleontology. This was the moment the mystery bone finally gave up its secret. Okay, so this was the moment. Picture this. The paleontologists put the mystery fossil right next to a vertebra from a modern green anaconda, which is already one of the biggest snakes on the planet. And they were just stunned. The fossil wasn't just a little bigger, it was 3 times the size. They realized they weren't looking at a crocodile or a turtle. They were looking at the vertebra of a snake, a titan snake. So, using that vertebra, they started crunching the numbers. The results were just mind-bending. The snake, which they ended up naming Titanoboa, stretched up to 50 feet in length. That is nearly twice the size of the biggest anaconda ever recorded. And its weight? Even more astonishing. Titanoboa tipped the scales at an estimated 1.2 tons. That's over 2,500 pounds. We're talking as heavy as a sedan. This was a creature so massive it literally defies our whole understanding of what a snake can even be. And just to put that into perspective for you, a really big green anaconda is terrifyingly huge at 25 feet. Titanoboa was double that. Think about a standard school bus, right? That's about 45 feet long. Titanoboa was even longer than that. So this discovery didn't just reveal a new creature. It brought up a really fundamental biological question. A snake this heavy would probably be crushed by its own weight on land. So how on earth did it get so unbelievably big? Well, the answer wasn't just in its bones, but in the worlds it lived in. Okay, to understand Titanoboa's massive size, you have to get this key concept. Snakes are ectotherms, what we commonly call cold-blooded. Unlike us, they can't generate their own body heat. Their entire metabolism, their ability to move, to hunt, to digest their food, is all powered by the temperature of their environment. And Titanoboa lived in a super greenhouse world. I mean, it was hot. Scientists actually used its massive size as a kind of prehistoric thermometer. See, for a cold-blooded animal to grow that large, the surrounding temperature had to be incredibly high. They calculated the average temperature in its rainforest home was over 32 degrees Celsius. That's over 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That constant, intense heat basically supercharged its metabolism, letting it grow to a size that's just unthinkable in today's cooler Amazon. So what have we got? A 50-foot, 1-ton snake living in a sweltering, prehistoric jungle? What was life actually like for this titan? And maybe more importantly, what and how did it eat? So Titanoboa was not the kind of snake you see in the movies, chasing things across the ground. It was just too heavy. Gravity was its enemy. Instead, it was an aquatic hunter, a lot like a modern crocodile. It would have spent most of its life in the water, which could support its massive body. It would lie in wait, perfectly camouflaged in the murky swamps, an ambush predator, just waiting for its next meal to come down to the water's edge. And when it struck, its power was absolute. Biomechanical models estimate its constricting force was over 400 pounds per square inch. To help you visualize that, scientists have said it's the equivalent of having two full-grown African elephants stand on your chest. There was no escape. Bones would just shatter, and circulation would stop in an instant. So what's on the menu for a predator this powerful? Well, other giants. The Cerrejón rainforest was also home to these massive turtles with shells over 8 feet wide and giant species of crocodiles. These weren't just prey, they were the other apex predators of the ecosystem. Titanoboa was a predator of predators. When they finally found its skull in 2011, it revealed its complete predator's toolkit. Its jaw could dislocate, letting it swallow prey an incredible 3 times wider than its own head. Its teeth weren't specialized for piercing, but for crushing right through thick shells and bone. And to top it all off, it had pit organs, so it could sense the body heat of its victims, making it a lethal hunter even in total darkness. So it was the undisputed king of its world, perfectly adapted, no natural enemies. Why is Titanoboa no longer with us? Why did the reign of the largest snake in history finally come to an end? The answer is actually both simple and tragic. The very world that created this giant is the thing that destroyed it. As the planet moved out of that hothouse phase, the environment started to change, and Titanoboa was completely unable to adapt. It really all came down to temperature. The global climate began to cool. Now, for a massive ectotherm like this, a drop of even a few degrees was a death sentence. Its metabolism slowed way down, it became too sluggish to hunt effectively, and even digesting a meal would take too long. At the same time, its swampy habitats began to dry up, and new, more adaptable mammals started showing up to compete for the dwindling food sources. Ultimately, the extreme heat that allowed Titanoboa to become a giant was both its greatest strength and its fatal weakness. Its entire existence was balanced on this knife's edge of temperature, and when the world cooled by just a few degrees, the Titan fell. And that leaves us with a fascinating and maybe a little unsettling thought. Titanoboa's story really shows us that the size of life on Earth is directly linked to the planet's climate. So as our own world warms at a pretty unprecedented rate, it really makes you wonder, what kind of giants is the future creating?